Check, check, check.
Check, check, check.
How about them Ravens? This is Corey, and this is the Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. Listen, you will be someday. You'll be 38. You'll be have no dead end job, no prospects, but you'll realize, hey, I'm a porn star. Thank you for joining us for episode 393 of the Anthem podcast, coming to you from all over LA. But Corey is there at the Anthem studios, gentrifying LA, one neighborhood at a time. Thank you for joining us. I think we'll leave that part for the After Dark version. How I accidentally became a porn star. I've lived the lives of three men. That is how. That's the only explanation. And I continue to say that, and people continue to not believe me. And then shit like that happens, and it's like, oh. Corey, have you ever accidentally become a porn star?
No.
See? He's not the one. It's the other of the three men's lives that I've lived.
To be fair, though, I've never aspired for that either. So,
have you ever recorded yourself in the act of lovemaking, Corey?
In various ways, yes.
So,
I've never scripted it out with like some hot female plumber coming over to fix the pipes or whatnot. But
why is the female the plumber in your fantasy example?
No, I was just coming up with
yeah, you're not going to be fixing pipes. I guess I get that. Anyway, so this is a special episode.
I was just coming up with the idea of why.
I got you. Okay, yeah.
What kind of porn based plot would be involved?
So, as you guys may know, this is a special episode where Corey's going to send a message out to his daughter 20 years from now. That's a great opening. No, it's a great opening for this episode. This is, imagine 16-year-old Casey like, Dad, what? Dad, why? Why would you let me listen to this?
First time Rob meets Casey, it's gonna be like, hey Casey, this is Rob. He causes trouble.
Wait, you're gonna tell your infant daughter on the way home from the hospital? Avoid this guy. Here's the thing. Much like
politely nod and smile, and then move on with your life. Don't apply anything.
Much
said
like
out loud.
Every teenage girl who I have been a mentor to, and boys as well, but this lesson is for the girls. I like to be a cautionary tale. Like, don't. If any of this is a red flag. If any of this pops up while you're on date number 1, never call him again. So that's my story. Anyway, we got a lot of news to get to this week.
Yeah.
First of all, I wanted to start out with something funny, just because we have a little bit of sad and strange news at the very top. News out today, just this morning. Former UN UN ambassador, former
Secretary of State,
and
Joint Chiefs,
chairman of the Joint Chiefs, 5-star general of the U.S. Armed Forces, Colin Powell,
National Security Advisor.
Yes,
yeah.
And it's Colin Powell, but that's the 1L. The 1L makes it Colin. The 2 L's make it Colin, apparently. Decorated war criminal. Starter of wars. As I said in our pre-show call, my favorite Nazi. died today. And you know, it as I said, that's somewhat jokingly, but mixed feelings because, like, for us, Colin Powell was the guy in Desert Storm, like taking questions, finger guns, finger guns, finger guns, you know, doing the questions thing, and I felt like there's someone competent running the military right now. We're good. We're gonna win this thing. Come to find out, probably wasn't as big of a question mark as I assumed it was. U.S. versus Iraq never ends well for Iraq. But he has been fighting stage 4 cancer. I'm gonna fuck that up. Myostopa something. A lot of metastasization of small cancers in his body. It's a blood cancer, so it doesn't bode well. And he'd been on some medication to bring down his immune system so that hopefully the drugs will kill off the infection. And I say all that to say he died of COVID. And you need those caveats ahead of time. Like, died of COVID, was vaccinated. Also, blood cancer, like 5-year fight against blood cancer on drugs to lower his immune system. So these things have to be taken in concert. But
yeah, I mean, we talk about, you know, COVID deaths a lot on this podcast, but obviously the amounts of people who die who are fully vaccinated is way lower unless you have extenuating circumstances like
Also
blood
80.
cancer
Also
and
80
special
years old.
treatments and 80 something years old. Yeah.
And it's weird because, like, I think of him in 2 ages. I think of him the young guy in 91 and then, like, older distinguished gentleman 2003, 2004. And they don't have a picture of him from now because apparently he obviously was sick. But there was one from like 2 years ago, and I'm like, damn, when did he get old? When did he get old? I still picture the guy at the UN. But he got old, and that's going to happen to all of us. We're all on a slow path toward death.
What's amazing to me about Colin Powell is that, like, he was as Republican got when it came to political beliefs and issues and stuff like that.
To be clear,
But
for the younger listeners, he was a 90s Republican. Don't I know you're going to clarify, but don't get confused, kids.
Yeah, don't think he was one of these types who wants to, like, blow up the moon or something like that. He was very, you know, like, fiscally conservative, like, obviously pro-military, being a general, and you know, he fit the party playbook very well. But at the same time, he was this, like, thoughtful speaker that made you think that he was making decisions based off of, like, a long period of deep consideration. Like, you know, like,
he ended in the White House because Bush was the compassionate conservative, and Colin Powell was liberal socially, but fiscally conservative and very pro-military. And so Bush was like, "Wait, if you're going to tell me he's black, he's going to be what? Oh, let's get him in here.
Well,
let's get him in here right now."
Not even like he was liberally conservative, though. It was just sort of like a
no, socially liberal.
Sometimes you'll look at, like, Reagan clips where he says something that sounds like it's a Democratic talking point from today, but he was still able to be the Republican candidate. Like, he'll be like, you know, I don't think it matters what, you know, like, how someone chooses to live their lives as long as they live it, you know, free and peaceful and like, you know, like,
not
you
communist.
Yeah, not communist, essentially.
I'd rather have a gay son than a communist son. I'm telling you that right now.
There was a Meet the Press thing that I thought about today, where Colin Powell was on Meet the Press, and it was during the Obama administration, and, you know, a bunch of Republicans had gotten into the calling Obama Muslim thing.
Yeah.
And he, like, took a moment. He was just like, you know, like, I really feel deeply about this, so I'd like to have a minute to talk on it. You know, he's not a Muslim. He's Christian. He's been a Christian for as long as he's been alive. But beyond that, what does it matter?
Yeah.
Like, what does it matter if he was a Muslim? Because there's Muslims all throughout this country. I just saw some photo essay where, you know, there was a woman crying at a gravesite at Arlington, and up at the top of the grave was not like a Star of David or a cross. It was, you know, Islam. It was the moon and the star and stuff like that.
Star, yes.
Yeah. And, you know, he was born in New Jersey, and he died serving our country. He was 13 when 9/11 happened, blah, blah, blah. But, like, he was so, like, it really did, everything seemed measured but thoughtful with him in a way that, like, almost no other member of especially the second Bush presidency, felt like there seemed to be more like sort of Reagan holdovers that were decent enough people to
and
an
some
extent.
some who weren't. Paul Wolfowitz.
No, and some who definitely weren't. But I'm saying like that the H.W. Bush president, the moment where it all started going wrong a little bit, like there was a couple yahoos that were allowed inside the castle walls.
And they're still there.
They accelerated during
yeah
during W, and then it went straight up nuclear during Trump. So.
But also keep in mind, he used that way that you think of Colin Powell is why they used him to sell the yellow cake bullshit to the UN, because everybody was like, I bet he's probably seen the evidence, so I trust him.
That's the real problem too. I mean, like we talked about this when Rumsfeld died, like whatever, a month and a half ago.
Too late. Far too late. Years too late.
Well, we were, and we talked about it with the end of Afghanistan and everything like that. Part of the reason why so many people thought that Iraq was the right thing to do, despite no solid evidence that there was anything wrong there, was Colin Powell. He went up in front of the UN. He spoke like authoritatively on what was going on and why they needed to do this, and said a bunch of things. Yeah, like, defended the weapons of mass destruction, which certainly were not the way it was being described. Like, he kind of, it's like if Mr. Rogers lied to you in a way, you almost felt like Colin Powell was going to be the one guy who was going to be beyond reproach and not do anything to deceive you, even though he had at times in the past, he had an opportunity to lie.
He was, yeah.
Importance of him in sort of the national discourse of our lives, growing up, like it was such an important part of.
Back in 45, we lost a very talented painter. He had some controversial opinions, and he carried him out, but he was a very talented painter. And given all of the things being equal, I mean, we could have had a real artist there on our hands. But Adolf Hitler, we still should make sure to say he's a Nazi and a war criminal. And as much as I prefer Colin Powell over Adolf Hitler, he's still a war criminal who knowingly lied to the public and got us into a war that ended this year.
Yeah.
So, again, that story about the 13-year-old, this kid was 13 when 9/11 happened. There were soldiers fighting in Afghanistan who weren't alive on 9/11. So, all pleasantries aside, he's still a war criminal. He still lied, and it's like the reason I don't care about Muslims or Christians or anything else is because if they're in a place where that has oil that we want, we'll bomb them. I don't care what their religion is; they're all equal under God and under me.
Well, I mean,
and the Marine Corps credo: kill them all and let God sort it out. Or Allah.
I mean, and that. This is really just a more common problem for the time that we live in, as opposed, because nobody was saying that like FDR was a war criminal for what he did. There was probably more people who were upset that he used the bomb. But
he didn't use the bomb.
No, fuck. What am I doing?
Truman used the bomb.
Truman. Yeah, it was post FDR.
Yep. But I mean, arguably he's still a war criminal. But I'm saying during
there were different theaters of war where this was never brought up.
Yes,
it's not until Iraq, Afghanistan, this time period of life where it became more evident that the American position of going in and fixing problems on behalf of themselves has led to this kind of. It's like we're going to talk about qualified immunity later, right? There's a lot of cops who get shielded from qualified immunity because there was this, long period of time where cops weren't doing shitty things all the time.
Well, you like Nixon. I'll still call him a war criminal. We can go back to the 70s. I mean, John Kennedy, you might love him, war criminal. Still bombed Cambodia.
What the question you have to ask yourself is anybody who's in part had any part to play in theater of war a war criminal in your mind then? Because at what point, where do you separate it? At what point in the administration do you separate
John Kennedy
somebody who was just doing a job as opposed to
John Kennedy secretly bombed Cambodia, killed a lot of people who were not related to the war. So
and
that's
Nixon did Laos, and
Nixon decided Cambodia had been done, so he was going to strike out and do his own thing in Laos. Also telling everyone the war is nearly won so that they wouldn't riot about, drafting another generation of young men to go in and die in Vietnam. So that's a war criminal. Reagan bombed Grenada and invaded Grenada. That's a war crime. HW went into Panama illegally. That's a war crime. I'm not saying that warfare makes you a bad person. Jimmy Carter had 2 military interdictions in his career, or his time as president. One of which was a semi-invasion of Iran that failed to rescue the hostages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll give him that one. And another one was in Central America. And for that, he's a war criminal. It is what it is. You can love him. Now, has he paid pardon for those sins? Arguably, yes. There's a 90-year-old guy who builds houses, fell down building houses for homeless people, went to the hospital, and the next day was back out building houses for homeless people. Sold his peanut farm because he was worried about any sort of untowardness. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. W basically grew up thinking, my dad's president, so I could be president too. That's how this works. And they gave it to him. So, although Jeb would later tell him, that's not how it works, buddy.
Please clap.
I don't think George ever had to ask people to clap. Anyway, it's sad that he died. It's sad that he died from COVID. 19 months into a pandemic where it could have been stopped. It hasn't been. That's probably the most tragic thing from the story. But we'll talk about COVID in a bit. Now, turning to a positive note, Corey has decided he's going to become a strong Catholic again because now he's finally got something to outweigh the kid touchers, yes, but also world peace.
I don't know.
I thought you were planning your wedding at the cathedral now. Oh, okay. Just at the courthouse. Got it. Yeah.
I just try and think of how I can be involved in getting get that working without getting too involved in the church, because
listen, we can't
I've
go
had
with
problems with Catholicism here in the last.
We can't go with Rachel's religion. I'm really worried about them passing snakes around in the church and having the baby there. I feel like that's probably not a good thing.
Well, and Rob and I were talking about this earlier,
yeah,
was a Catholic,
but that was also when Ireland.
And now
was
I feel like true, but I feel like the baton has been passed. There was I was saying I think there was once Jim and Tammy Faye Baker and the 700 Club and all these other sort of televangelist style people became more popular in the religion. The Protestant sect of Christianity started to become the crazier version.
Yeah.
Catholics just seemed like the buttoned up ones who were
yeah.
Why are they smoking in here? No, that's just the urn. It's not.
Now, to be fair though, for people who are younger, what they don't know Northern Ireland, they don't know about all of that. They know the Creflo Dollar, God wants me to have a plane. Sure, they know that part. But they also know, Spotlight. Spotlight is, if you're 22, 23, Spotlight was as you were a teenager. That was breaking. So, although, no,
yeah,
that math doesn't work. I guess early 12, you'd been 12, right? Because it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, certainly the problems with the church and the touching of children is sort of seriously damaged Catholicism's ability to be looked at as like a serious thing. But
One might also say the guy who preaches about helping the poor while sitting on a golden throne in a golden crown with a golden fucking dress might also do that.
And here's the thing, like I've been a Catholic my whole life. You know, I've had 3 popes basically my life.
No,
I've had
4.
yeah, but I mean like that I'm aware of.
Okay, all right, yeah.
And you know, like it sort of went good, bad, good here in my mind. Obviously, God damn it, what's the
John
name
Paul,
on
the second.
John Paul? Thank you, John Paul II.
By the way, one of us grew up Catholic. One of us grew up Catholic.
Well,
just
no,
so
I
that's
said
clear.
I had John. I didn't want to fuck up again.
Wait, you
Like,
had John. You mean like
with FDR dropping the bomb?
70 of the popes who had the name John along with something else, or just John? Right? Yeah, gotcha. Go ahead.
John Paul II was good, but he was
It's
he was
Confucius,
an old,
right? Confucius the Pope. I feel like that's correct. I don't know.
He was more old school in the fact that he wasn't like he wasn't like Vatican I or anything like that, but he was certainly more in line with the political ideology of the church. And then came along Benedictus, who was a former Nazi youth.
Yeah, we didn't know that though at the beginning.
Even further to the right of John Paul. John Paul was a loving guy, you know, and he was lucky to have Mother Teresa at the same time, like sort of them living at the same time sort of created this like Catholic power couple, if you will.
Listen, the College of Cardinals said we've been swaying a little bit to the left. How is it that who can we look to bring us back to our conservative values? A Nazi? Yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that. German.
Listen, this guy seemed to love people too much. We gotta change that up. Is there a German we can hire for this Pope thing?
I mean, immediately you go to the German. Immediately you're just like, we need somebody who's tough. Who's that?
Yeah.
What's a German cardinal? What's his name? Yeah, let's go with him. And
Reinschmeingen.
And then they reacted the opposite way, and they elected a Jezzy from South America.
Yeah, and by the way, I still can't. I still don't have any guidance on this because I asked Roberto earlier.
He doesn't know.
I said I
don't care what it is. He doesn't know. Why would you ask him?
I called Frankie a Jezzy.
Yeah,
and then I was just like, is this in fact like an inappropriate term, like, or is this just something you can call someone who's a Jesuit? Because like,
so as
I feel like somebody would get offended by this, but I don't know if it's like enough people would get offended. Like, you know, I don't feel like I'm saying like a racial epithet or anything.
No,
like, it doesn't feel that serious.
I get that because a girl I dated in high school / college, hung out with in college, went to a Jesuit church. Like the Jesuit order was the one who maintained the not a cathedral. What's the smaller version? The whatever. A small. Yeah. It was like it's in the Eastern Shore. It's a small fucking place. There's not enough for the full-time priest. So the Jesuits are there doing other work, and then the priest of the Jesuit order is also the priest of the church. Grew up there, and then went to a Jesuit college. And she always said Jezzy. So I assume it's okay. But this may be like an N-word thing. And like you're allowed to use it, but I'm not allowed to use it. I don't know if that's the case.
That's the other part. Like, because like I know like a lot of my people who have a lot of my Catholic people have interactions with Jesuits, all within Catholicism here,
right.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Are usually kind of like the traditional Catholic who say Jezzy as opposed to a Jesuit who says it. Like, I don't feel like I've ever met a Jesuit who said Jezzy out loud, but I've heard a lot of Catholics say Jezzy.
They don't call themselves Jesuits though. They think that we're just Catholic. We're all Catholics. But then if you're a traditionalist, you got to be like, he's Catholic, but he's a Jezzy. I'm
a tweet Pope Francis on this. I just want to, I need some guidance from
Can we get some guidance? Do we need to bleep out Jezzy all through our podcast?
I just think he'd be cool. Like, I think he'd answer that question with like some grace, like a
Fuck
good
no,
Pope
yo,
should.
What are you doing?
What
Somebody
the fuck you say to me?
Somebody has taken over the Twitter account. That's what happened.
Somebody else tweeting from Pontifex.
But yeah, getting back to it, Pontifex tweeted a bunch of stuff. Yes.
Sure.
Friendly
And
socialism,
just,
though, like good socialism, not like Rob socialism. That's a whole. He's not going to go that far.
well, yeah, I mean, misinformation, defamation, slander, and what sick attraction for scandal that they seek to contribute to human fraternity. I mean, like he's just going down the list of like literally everything wrong with the world right now.
Right. He's like world
The
peace. Here we go.
environment, social crisis, all these things. Uh, and this is what I had constantly been, like rationalizing as my reason for still being a Catholic is that I feel like at its basis form, Christianity, Catholicism should be about helping others, should be about lifting people up, and like not letting the poor go hungry, and like all of the Catholicism is required of good work. Like there needs to be something that you give back, that's something that you do to help others. And thankfully Frankie is like right on board with all of these ideas, and I am very happy about it because the last pope was so Nazi that I really couldn't get involved with what was going on there. It was just too dictatorial, and like I don't know. I feel like this is a great day for like the Pope as a person to like take the opportunity to take his almost unfireable position and use it for good.
Yeah.
But I also wonder, like, at what point, like, are people even paying attention anymore? Is this a big thing anymore? Like, used to, a year ago or whatever, Pope Francis said something about like letting gay people come to church, like they're all part of the community and shouldn't be exercised out, which for a long time was like a big Catholic no-no.
Yeah.
To talk about including anyone who had any kind of difference from a traditional straight relationship, and even further back in Catholicism, a straight relationship where you had no sort of sexual interaction prior to marriage, where you didn't get divorced, where you had
no contraceptive,
sex only for children, and blah blah blah.
Well, and to be fair, though, in that way, you're a good practicing Catholic, because Corey does not believe in contraceptive whatsoever, as evidenced by the current situation. So, but I mean, listen, I think we're about to see two things. One, how little it mattered that the Pope had an opinion on anything. And two, that the Catholics that are either good people or really terrible people. One, you're going to learn, it's going to be the Facebook, it is going to be the Trump of all Catholics. You'll be able to see like, oh, so you're a shitty person, even though you're a Catholic and I thought you were okay. We made it through Trump, but Frankie just took it too far. So now you're going to be shitty about the Pope. But also, nothing's going to happen, so it doesn't matter.
I mean, like, I think back, like, it was like high school or college where John Paul said that hell doesn't exist. Like, it's not a physical place. It's just a existential place in one's mind or
Yeah.
something like that. And for it like it was such a big talking point around the world. It felt like the World Cup was happening. Like
Yeah.
just like it like everyone stopped and was just like, what? Hell's not a place. How dare you? Like,
How
like,
dare
what are
you,
doing?
Pope, leader of my religion, tell me rules about my religion?
Like, you know, like I feel like if, you know, if JP2 had done something like this, it would have been fucking a humongous story. And I wonder if it's just the lessening of the impact of religion and Catholicism specifically, or if it is just like there's too much shit going on and people don't got time to listen to the Pope. I don't know. I mean, obviously a combination of a lot of things.
The church nominated an actual Nazi to be Pope, and then after that, it's kind of like, all right, well, you know,
kind of hard to bring back from that.
Come back from the brink. Could be any of those things. But let's hope for the best.
Yeah, the Oscars gave Green Book the best picture, but we're trying to be better. We're trying to be more inclusive.
Yeah. But I listen, I hope for the best. I hope that this has monumental change. I just don't have any belief that it will. So.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, at the very least, you're in favor of what Pope Francis has been saying here, though, right?
Listen, I don't think you went far enough, but yes, sure. Like, let's start there.
It seems like a radical shift in the Pope to just get on the point where Rob would agree with anything that they say from gut. You know, like some of this stuff is pretty basic humanity 101. You know, like feeding the poor and housing the.
Not touching kids. Yes.
Yeah, educating, like all these things, you know, these should be pretty easy to follow. But like, you know, like a big declaration like this, usually Rob would have a problem with what the Pope had to say, but this time it seems like he's warming up to it a little bit.
Although, let's wait, because much like John Paul and much like other things,
let's see what happens next week.
He may walk it back next week. Yes, absolutely. And speaking of things that are likely possibly going to happen next week, I named this section Yobs, our joke from Anchorman. Is it Anchorman? Yes, Anchorman. About it's I'm going yogging.
Is it a short J or
I'm going yogging or I'm going jogging, or it might be yogging. It might be a short J. And I make that joke because pretty often we have to talk about how no one in my life is employed. I am the only person employed. I'm sorry, Rachel. Rachel's employed, although she's about to go on a long vacation. I am the only person gainfully employed amongst our entire friends group. And I don't know how Corey has wormed his way into living this cat life that he has of just napping all day and then waking up and eating and then going back to sleep for a while and then napping some more and then waking up and doing a podcast with me and going immediately to bed.
I blamed me falling asleep today on the fact that I didn't have a chair to sit in front of my computer to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was on the couch, and therefore at some point when you're on the couch, you're just like, well, I can lay down here for 5 minutes and it won't be a big deal.
Weren't you going to buy another chair? Wasn't there going to be another chair purchased? Because
I'm not buying another chair. No, fuck that. I'm not buying another chair.
So why wouldn't you just keep your chair so you can work?
Because my girlfriend is pregnant and she deserves to sit in a comfortable chair while she works.
At least you have a good reason now. 7 months ago I didn't, but now I do. I mean, 7 months ago you did, but nobody knew. Now you have a justified reason.
No, 7 months ago she stole my chair, but at least I had your old chair to just fall back on, you know?
The one I'm sitting in right now. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so talking about jobs, there's a lot of worker strife going on right now. Last week and I think the week before we talked about Yahtzee and the possible strike. Good news, folks. The strike it may still happen, but we're on our way to having a lukewarm deal that nobody likes, and that is what we call a compromise. So,
I'm not happy about it, and I don't think a lot of people who are membership of IATSE are very happy about it. I will say this though, something that seems to get lost a lot in conversations about any kind of large scale union negotiations. We react to what happens when what the what the return is, like what the agreed upon deal is.
Yeah.
But you have no idea what was going on in the room, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
And you know, I think back to the NFLPA was getting close to a strike at one point, like 10 years ago or something like that. and DeMaurice Smith just looked like he was doing zero. Like he was just rolling over and getting everything taken away from him. And then I heard somebody talk about it, like somebody who was in the negotiating team for the Players Association, and they said, "You have no idea how like he has no like it's so difficult to negotiate against 32 owners like this, like with all different opinions and different wants and different needs, and you're sort of trying to organize for the collective of, you know, hundreds of players, thousands of players, and it is not as easy as you think it is. Like it's not like, you know, trying to negotiate where we're going to eat lunch or something like that. There's so many. If you had to do that with 1,000 different people, it'd become a lot more difficult than, you know, just like looking at a bunch of menus. You know what I mean?
And,
but
I mean, listen,
that being said,
the chief negotiator for IATSE, I think they're doing the best job they can, and the fact that they just got a 3-picture deal at Universal has nothing to do with anything, and I don't know. I am insulted by the insinuation. Thank you very much.
Listen, they're on contract now. No, that didn't happen. We're just joking there. Don't get.
But if that came out, best believe there's going to be a strike. Even if they already have a deal, they're going to strike.
But basically what happened was the last real offer that seemed to be on the table prior to the strike authorization is more or less what ended up being agreed to even after everyone like packed up all their gear on Friday thinking they were going to strike and not show up on Monday. So it sort of felt like we gave you this awesome power of we're going to strike, we're going to pack up all our gear, we're going to not show up on Monday, and we're going to start picket lines with no additional concessions, essentially.
Some small things, but nothing like substantial like they were looking for.
No, you know, and like, again, you don't know what the room was like.
True.
But at the same time, like, I feel like a lot of people in IATSE are, there were some must-haves that were not met. And I feel like that is what is really causing the trouble here with trying to get a deal eventually done is, you know, like they don't want to give it's the same. The IATSE workers want certain things and the studios don't want to give it up. Like these are the 3 most important points on each side.
Yeah. And
it's going to be hard to break through that unless you legitimately strike. And, you know, while striking is a protective order or is like a protective action that a worker can take, that doesn't mean that necessarily you are protected from being replaced in the more abstract sense. You know, like a film production is not there are certainly people who work on like studio lots and have for 10 years. You know, if you're a gaffer at the Ellen show, you've been working in LA for a decade, going to the same lot on the same studio in Los Angeles for, you know, a decade. But most people switch jobs, you know, like we get new jobs multiple times a year, you know, like we it's not necessarily has to take place in Los Angeles. Like part of the reason why a lot of film production does is because people live here, celebrities live here, actors live here. But as soon as it becomes cheaper to just fly them to Atlanta, they'll do it, you know, and that's the problem.
But IATSE in Georgia stands with IATSE National. So
no. And I understand, but I'm saying like, you know, there is a, you know, like while I certainly think that more should have come from the strike authorization, you don't necessarily know at what point is the point where a lot of film work in Los Angeles could just disappear because it becomes more expensive to do it here as opposed to, you know, film in like fucking, you know, India or something. Like, you know, like outsourcing is real for this business too.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that, you know, like people who negotiate these contracts are more aware of than, you know, somebody who just happens to be a member of IATSE. Not picking on any particular I'm just saying like you were never going to know as much as the person who's in the room. That's always been my number one point in talking about labor matters like this. You just don't know what it's like in that room.
Another thing to remember though is that the union has to approve whatever deal is struck. So it goes back to all the members. They have another vote, and they need a majority vote. And if we voted to strike for these 3 concessions, 98% of us, 98% of 90, is that what it was? 98% of 90?
Yeah.
Then I have a feeling that if those 3 concessions aren't in the deal, that you're going to have a hard time convincing them to vote for the deal.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that will kind of remain to be seen. Side note to that, there are workers on strike all over the country, and mainstream media not covering them whatsoever. John Deere, their national plant, shut down. 10,000 workers went on strike. And then John Deere ordered their office workers, who are non-unionized, to go in and run the line. They made it from 7:45, which was start time, to 7:58 before there was a catastrophic injury that required calling an ambulance for. So, listen, you could get scabs. It might not be the quality you think that you're going to get, because Dennis over there can barely run a Xerox. You want him to run an industrial machine? Good luck to you. Good luck.
Yeah.
To you. And there are other unions on the verge of striking all over. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people posting this thing from, I want to say it's Henry Ford. Probably not, but it might be. Nonetheless, it was a baron during the Depression who said that, like, bad economic times are a boon for us. Labor is interchangeable and it's easy to find. And I think that all over the place, there are companies saying, you know what? There's a lot of unemployed people out there. I bet we can get some of those people in here. You're not happy with $19 an hour, John Deere worker. I could replace you with somebody who would take less than that in rural Alabama or wherever it is that plant's located. And I think they're going to find out that that's not the case. There is a skill, like much like IATSE, there is a skill to being a John Deere construction or industrial worker. Like you remember to pull your hand out before you hit the button on the press, and don't press your fucking hand, which apparently is yet another injury. There have been injuries literally like hourly at the plant. And also, imagine you're an office worker. Your boss orders you to go to the line and you get injured. This is going to be an expensive fucking proposition for John Deere. Because if that was me, on the way to the hospital, I'm just going to laugh and shake, and I might not have a hand anymore, but I'm going to get paid. All right, you could put the cash in my other hand. I'm good. So,
I mean,
there's just a lot of organizing, and I think people should be more aware of it.
Well, beyond just that, like, you know, obviously we're sort of in the middle of the great quitting, which is like sort of being termed online, of like everyone quitting their jobs, trying to get new ones.
Yep.
And a lot of industries and businesses who are just having a ridiculously hard time finding new workers. Like, you know, the restaurant industry right now is just like...
That's not true, though. They are having a hard time finding workers at the wages that they want to pay.
Oh,
That's
yeah, obviously. Yeah. That I'm saying, like, they're having trouble finding workers because they're not willing to open up the purse strings more for people who are willing to do it. Like,
right.
And, you know, I think if anything, from a sort of economic level, what COVID has proven to people, even if they had really good jobs that had like good benefits and paid them well and everything like that, you know, like all it takes is one, you know, global pandemic for you to realize like, oh, I'm so much closer to being homeless than I ever realized I was.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, and, you know, like I can feel this too, because like, you know, there's a part where, you know, like maybe you do something, you know, like I'm sure you took a case when you were a lawyer for less than what you thought you should get for it.
Oh yeah.
Because you rationalize some sort of reason, like, you know,
victims of domestic violence deserve a lawyer. Yes, I absolutely did that. I was actually the number 1 hours on the entire Eastern Shore for that.
Right. But I'm saying, like, you know, at some point, you know, if the fact that you never took a dime from anybody who was doing a domestic violence case kept you from being able to survive on your own,
yeah,
you would have to start saying like, hey, listen, I can't do this anymore. Like, you know,
that's the difference between you and I live by principles. Listen, if I was an unprincipled man, I could be a millionaire right now. I've said before on the show, I know all of the recipe to become the biggest YouTube conservative talk guy that you've ever heard. I could have people buying water with my face on it, because not anybody who listens to this podcast, but somebody who you know is dumb and a conservative, and I know exactly what to say to rile them up and get them activated. But I don't. I work at a music company that is the second fastest growing music company in the country. Everything they do, literally everything I touch, there is a facilitation on my part to make every dollar that comes in. Never had an interview, never been in any public. Nobody even knows. People come in and they're like, oh, hey, person who I read that article about, tell me about this thing. And they're like, yeah, you should ask Rob about that. Because he knows how it works. I plug in a number and then the number pops up and I that's the number I go with. But I don't need to do interviews. I don't need to be famous about it. I don't need to, start my own YouTube company. Although if you have $15 million, I'm just, yeah. Anyway, I'm just saying, I know the secret sauce. But I am a man of principle. So I oppose your viewpoint. And I would say, I would rather, and in fact, the managing partner didn't like that I said this about it when I was a lawyer. Like, I would rather take one of these cases that's free than a paid case.
Well, no, and listen, I applaud the fact that you would do these things. I'm saying, obviously, with this example, there's sort of a real world situation why somebody would not take a certain case or take a certain case for a certain amount of money. I've been
broke 4 times and rich 4 times, and eventually there's going to be another broke period, but another rich one's going to come around again. I'm in the rich one right now. I'm living a dream.
If all you did was if your legal world was only about widgets and getting things from A to B, and it wasn't about real people, maybe there's some person, a friend of yours, who you take a suit for less money than you would somebody who walked in blind off the street.
Sure. I mean, I can put myself
if you're
in
only
that
writing if you're only writing contracts, some random person who walks in is getting full rate. I walk in and say I need a contract. You'll give it for me half off.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
No,
listen, how much free advice did I give people who are like, "Hey, Rob, how are you doing?" Hi, person from high school I haven't talked to in 14 years. What legal advice do you need?
No, but I'm saying, everyone has gotten to the point now where they're just like, listen, I was a nice guy. I was doing things for cheap because I felt like I could. And now I'm not giving that up anymore. Like, I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
And, people who work in restaurants, like, they largely got fired and laid off during, COVID. And now they're coming back and they want to work in the same industry. Maybe.
Yeah.
They have at least a passing interest in the same industry. And they're getting paid the same amount as they were before. So that's not helping.
No.
And they're going to have to deal with more bullshit than they did before.
Way more bullshit.
Yeah. Like, if you live in it, regardless, even if you didn't give a shit about COVID one way or the other, if you were trying to be like Switzerland to any kind of COVID problem in the world, if you're a Los Angeles waiter, now you have to ask people whether or not, to see their COVID cards and stuff like that.
Yep.
And at least once a day, you're going to get screamed at by some fucking 50-year-old who's just like, that's all bullshit. It's just like,
we can
you're
do
just
better
standing
on that.
there going like,
you're a writer.
This is just my job.
You're a writer. Let's do better on the description. It's a 50-year-old blonde or sandy brown haired woman named Karen or her white hair 55-year-old husband. There is no way anyone who is not Caucasian is making a scene that regularly. It's all Caucasian people. It's all Orange County people coming up here for a night out. Stay home. Stay home, motherfuckers.
I think other people do it too, but I'm saying, yes, the heavy majority is the Karens and Kens of the world.
And they're about to get elected to Senate, so I don't want to hear it, okay?
One last thing in the news here.
Yeah.
We're in jury selection of the Ahmed Arbery trial. And there's a couple pieces of pre-trial motions that are still being discussed.
Yeah.
And I thought we'd go through those real quick.
Well, I mean, how much time do you want to go through? Because we were at 50 minutes already. So how much touching on this do you want to do?
How about this? I'll just ask you, you get one or the other.
Okay, go.
There are 2 major points that are being discussed by the judge right now. Whether or not evidence that one of the assailants had a Confederate flag on the back of his truck and a Confederate flag license plate, which apparently you have to pay for.
Yeah, vanity plate.
Yep. And there's another piece of evidence that is there's some sort of dispatch call where you could hear Ahmed Arbery in the background crying out, and apparently it doesn't look good for the defendants.
So I'm a defense attorney.
Yeah. If you could have one or you could only have one of the 2, which one do you want?
I'll take license plate. License plate. all day.
As the state, you want the license plate?
Yep, because listen, whether or not it was a motivation, it's going to be a discussion now. 3 guys who have espoused very Trumpian conservative beliefs about and very racist beliefs about black people. You might be able to explain away the cry out on the call or whatever was said on the call, which nobody knows except for the guy calling or the officer who heard it and the 911 operator. But I can make a lot from the fact that you paid extra, like $1,000 extra, to get a license plate with a Confederate flag on it. That says a lot to me. When you're making the argument like, we just wanted to talk to him, we chased him in the truck because we wanted to talk to him, and like the truck with the license plate with the Confederate flag on the front, you feel like there's a reason why he might not have wanted to stop for the guy, 3 guys in a truck with guns with a Confederate flag on it. Like, I feel like that is, even if you are coming in blind to the whole thing, which nobody is, I think you got to look at that and be like, oh, damn,
that doesn't look good.
Damn. Yeah. Like, okay. Okay. Yeah. I don't have a good argument. I don't know what to say. So,
yeah.
I mean, and like I said, I think you can explain away the phone or not the phone call. I guess it's like a live mic, right? It was a live mic on the scene.
Yeah.
You can explain that away. Can't explain the truck you bought 2 months before it happened, the vanity plates you got 4 weeks before it happened that you paid extra for. Like that's kind of hard to get around. But there were some decisions on other stuff. Like Ahmed's history of mental illness can't come in. Previous arrests can't come in, which is all good because I think the state rightly argued those guys had no idea who he was. So even if they had known, then you might be able to make the argument like, well, they knew he was aggressive and that he had problems with law enforcement before, so they're on edge. They didn't know that. They saw a black dude running in their neighborhood, and they were not about to have that. So, I mean, and I'm making a guess there, but the fact that he has a Confederate flag on his license plate tells me a lot about the guy. So, and the fact that he was about to turn on his 2 associates before he got charged too. Like, what a rat! There's a rat in your unit. That is a fact.
Well, you know what? Honestly, I think I agree with you because I feel like if somebody came to me and said like a man with a Confederate flag license plate was just arrested for a felony, what felony was it? I would probably say something about something super racist.
Yeah.
So
he shot a black guy, right? Where is this? Georgia? Oh, he shot a black guy.
Yeah, he definitely shot a black guy.
Wait. Was it a lynching? No. Okay. Yeah, he shot a black guy. That's what happened. Yeah. So I mean, and that's going to be a long. Listen, they're going to take 6 to 8 weeks to do jury selection alone. Then the trial is probably going to take. It's going to be O.J. Simpson. It's going to take forever. They're going to a different county, so everyone's going to have to be sequestered. It's like it's going to be a whole thing. But what is the life worth? Is it if it costs $5 million to put three guys in jail? Is it worth it? Probably. To send a message, if nothing else. So.
Yeah.
Or we could just lynch him. We could just go in the jail and lynch him right now.
Well, I mean, I would at least like a guilty finding before.
I don't know if you knew this detail.
I'm not against the death penalty. I'm just saying, I
don't know if you know this, Corey. He had a Confederate flag on his license plate that he just bought.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a DNA of a type. It's not like scientific DNA, but I look at that and I'm like, don't need CIS for this one.
Yeah. But I'm saying like, even when you feel really confident about how a verdict is going to go down, every once in a while, you have somebody walk free. The aforementioned OJ. There was no evidence to keep OJ from being found guilty.
Why did he get off though?
Because there was a lot of
there was a
racist going on in that
cop. One. There was a racist cop involved in the case. I mean, when are people going to learn? When are people going to learn? The racism just never pays off for you, whether it's killing a guy on the street or being a cop. Anyway, I won't talk about cops because I don't want to get off on that. Let's move on. Let's lightning round the rest of this.
Don't get banned on YouTube.
Yeah, don't get banned. Let's lightning round the rest of this. Of course, we have to mention COVID this week. We mentioned it with Colin Powell at the top, but another big story, J&J. If you got the J&J vaccine, good. Thank you for getting vaccinated. But also, the products that they have at Walmart that aren't the thing, but like look like the thing, like
the generic.
Yeah, the fruity rings, and you're like, This is not. It's Fruit Loops, but it's not Fruit Loops. You know what I mean? Like, and apparently fruit, it doesn't have two O's, even though it absolutely did when I was a kid. So Mandela effect. But turns out it's the least effective
Count
vaccine.
vanilla flakes.
Yes, Tiger Flakes is what they're called. Tiger Flakes. For no reason. There's nothing tiger about them. Why would you call them that? Anyway. So it turns out the J&J vaccine is the least covering, I guess, of them, like 70%.
Effective.
Yeah, least effective at 70%, which, by the way, still way better than zero. So you're good. But everyone who got J&J is going to have to get a booster. And essentially what the FDA panel of experts said is this should have been a 2-shot. What they did is they made it like 1.25 in size. And what they should have done is cut out the 2.5 and made it 1 and 1 because it's not nearly enough. Now, Corey made the interesting point during our pre-call that like, well, thank God, though, there was a 1 dose. We live in a city with like 50,000 homeless people. And the likelihood that any of them show up for dose 2, basically zero. So get the 1 shot. You get them vaccinated. There's some protection. We're working on herd immunity. I'm down. I get that. And listen, the likelihood that any of those guys are going to get the booster, probably low. Yeah. Did you get J&J? I don't know. They came and they gave me a shot. It was water. It was saline water. I don't believe anything. There's a guy who continues to re-graffiti the bridge by my apartment here, where it's like the vaccine is fake, and like he has this whole manifesto that he puts up on a wall, and then the city comes and paints over it, and without fail, within 2 days, the manifesto is back up exactly as it was the first time, and I'm like, bro, you are persistent, and I like that about you. Also, he's probably gonna stab me. He would stab me if I ever stopped to tell him that. But
tell him that you appreciate his work.
Yeah, he's like, what are you, a Fed? And just cut me. But so J&J, if you got the J&J, you're gonna get a booster. Go get your boosters. Having any vaccine is still better than having no vaccine, but upsetting news because this is just gonna give people more things to talk about, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you know, I recently heard an interview with somebody who was in, public health, and they said, the real problem here is that the CDC is the most effective version of the CDC is when something has come out and they have time to study it and they have time to make recommendations based off of a long period of study, and then share that with the American people. But more so, and since COVID began, they became the immediate person to go to instead of like a pandemic isn't really the place where the CDC should be out front of things.
No,
like they should be on the back end, like doing the research. So
and
like people
preparing us for the next time. Like they responded really well to Ebola a few years ago, but that's because we'd seen Ebola, we'd studied it, we knew what to do, and everything they'd been working on in the intervening time was to stop Ebola from becoming a pandemic ever in the U.S. What they're doing now is reacting to live, which is not what they meant to do. If the next time COVID comes around or something, another coronavirus, they'll be way better prepared for it. That's their job. It's the Center for Disease Control, not control and then prevention, actually, I think is what it used to be called. But it's not the deal with the ongoing global pandemic. That's not what they do. So.
But the good news, cases are trending down.
Yes.
But the deaths remain steady. 1,200 lives a day, 725,000 total.
Yeah. And I think you made a good point too about the deaths will like trail the cases.
Yeah, I mean, like people get sick immediately, but they don't die right away. Just because you got COVID on Monday doesn't mean you're dead on Tuesday.
I wish it was.
Somebody who gets COVID today and is going to die, like let's just say that at some point they will die. It will be, a couple weeks or probably, so like a case from 2 weeks ago is sort of charting as a death for today,
14 to 17 days minimum to get to that point. So yeah, so it will trend behind, and it remains to be seen. This is actually the first time they've become this disjointed, the cases to deaths, which for me is worrisome because that could mean the variants are more deadly than some new variant that they haven't even found yet because the DNA takes 2 weeks to come back. Could be out there and could be killing people. The best case scenario, because Corey loves to see the world with rosy glasses on. Also, he likes Rosie to clean his floor. But is that, oh, well, the deaths will come down as the weeks go on because it's trailing. So we'll see. But yeah, 725,000. By the way, we talk about the worker shortage. Maybe it's because 800,000 people aren't working anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I will also say this all seems too familiar to me, at least from what I've been looking at here so far, which is, like a lot of people get sick in like a big bunch, and then there's the downtrend, and then people are just like, we're safe, and then all of a sudden it goes back up. And honestly, I think a lot of this just has to do with the fact that
people are stupid.
I'm guesstimating about like a 6-month protective period between getting COVID. Like if you got COVID, January 1st, come June, July, you can get sick again. Like there is some sort of protection you get from having had COVID, but that doesn't keep you from getting it again forever.
And keep in mind, though,
I think
one of the contractors at my work has had COVID 4 times in 19 months. 4 times in 19 months. So the 6th month is a soft. I mean, essentially what happened is he got it in March, and then as soon as he could get reinfected, he got reinfected and got it again. Like, what? But how do you get it 4 times? How do you not start doing things to not get infected after you get it?
Well, I mean, like, if you get it and like literally nothing happens, then you're probably one of these people who's just like, fuck it doesn't matter. Like,
these are also people who are like licking doorknobs and getting the flu 5 times a year. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But here we are. Here we are.
So lightning round some politics stuff here.
Yes.
SCOTUS.
Yes, Corey, did you know that not every opinion is released with like fanfare and the dissenting vote and the concurring vote and all of that? Is this new to you?
No. I know that, you can send it down to the lower court and there's not a lot of fanfare involved. But I for whatever reason, I felt like there was on a case like this, they might still have a count of the dissenting votes, even if they didn't necessarily.
You'd think. Yeah, you'd think. Unless there were some people who voted ways that we wouldn't expect, and they were like, you know what, maybe it's better if people don't know that I voted yes.
I mean, that's honestly what it makes me think. Like, because I feel like Sotomayor would take any opportunity she can to say that she was on the other side of a qualified immunity case unless she wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, it's like, it kind of just makes me feel like this was like a 9-0 decision behind closed doors and they sent it back.
Yeah.
As opposed to,
I'm fine with that. If they are like, listen, procedurally, this should never have come here. We're sending it back to the court. Here are your instructions for how to proceed. Go. That's great. You can say that though. And that's not what they just basically release the decision and that's it.
Well, and also dissent to me, while there is certainly dissent that happens in these types of cases from time to time, I feel like it doesn't get out as much just because, like, if you're not actually hearing the argument, what are you dissenting to? You're dissenting to it in principle.
Yeah.
Like, Texas, when they basically shadow docketed that and sent it back, like they were just saying, like, there was a clear message from the dissenting justices because they didn't want to make it seem like they were part of this whole thing, like Sotomayor and Kagan, and they didn't want to make it seem like they were involved in this.
But we've buried the lead there a bit. The cases were both about qualified immunity for police officers. You can read up on cases. The California case, I actually agree with, which hurts my feelings, like deep down. But principally, I stand with the police officer, something you never thought you'd hear me say. I stand with the cop on that one. And then the case out of, I think it was Texas or Tennessee or somewhere in the
Oklahoma.
South. Oklahoma. Close enough. It's a red state. I absolutely disagree with, but they basically lumped them together and said, here are 2 qualified immunity cases. We're sending them both down to the other courts with instructions. Like, that's it. Finding for the police officers. So qualified immunity, again, is not a national principle. It is a locality thing that they put in, and Congress could easily stop these kind of things and give instruction to the court by saying, cops do not have qualified immunity. Here is the very limited circumstances under which you could not be charged with something if you're a police officer. Okay.
Well, and the problem, too, with a lot of these qualified immunity cases is that they drive to be so specific to use as the basis for a like a standard, like oh well, this one cop was found liable because he shot some guy wearing a blue shirt, and my client was wearing a red shirt, so therefore
totally different.
It's not the same case.
Totally different thing.
Like he can't. We have to take this up to the Supreme Court to find out whether or not he has qualified immunity.
In this case, the cop kneed on his neck. Now, in my case, my guy kneed on his solar plexus, which, as you know, is 4 inches down from the neck. It is a very different case. We must take it to the Supreme Court.
This perp was named Raul, and this guy's name was Randy. So
totally different.
I mean, I think qualified immunity should stand, even though every single other detail of the case was the same.
Yeah. And again, for the California case, it was pretty clearly just a cop doing his job, which is shitty, but you shouldn't be charged with a crime or sued for doing your job, especially when the guy is fighting you and you're just trying to get him in cuffs.
Well, and that's really the rub, because like, there's some things that cops do that I wish they didn't do, but are also not things that I think they deserve to be sued personally over.
Right. Yeah.
And we all, it's kind of the definition of pornography, when you see it. I just know when I see police abuses and when it's somebody doing the job per se. Well,
and really this goes to the perp who is working off all of our feelings of cops aren't as good as we think. And he's like, yeah. For instance, I fought a cop for 12 minutes, but when he finally got me on my stomach, he kneed on my back for 8 seconds. And we don't like that, do we? Right? We don't like the kneeling on people. Like, yeah. Fuck you, dude. Like, you fought him for 12 minutes, and then he held you down briefly to cuff you. Fuck you. How dare you?
Like watch Cops. Yeah. Like, I think that's a great idea of what is acceptable and unacceptable police, quote unquote, brutality, if you will.
Oh yeah, there are 1,000 recordings that didn't end up on the show. If Fox put it on TV, it's probably close to all right.
Yeah, if you saw a cop see some guy running down the alley and then he caught him and then threw him to the ground to cuff him, all of that is protected. There's literally no other way to do it other than that. Sometimes,
listen, Judge, I asked him to stop 4 times. I politely asked him. I said, please.
As much as I'd love police to just be like, hey, stop. And the guy goes like, all right, I'm stopping because this is part of a legal process for which I must be it's just not realistic. But yes, no. I mean, I would love less immunity for police officers, but and these two particular cases, I mean, the other, I looked up the Oklahoma one. It's kind of the guy was threatening his family with power tools.
Yes.
And then the police went into the garage and the garage opened up and he had a hammer in his hand. And then apparently he walked towards them and started raising the hammer and they shot him and killed him.
So that detail is in question. He may have just turned towards them, as you do when your garage door opens and 2 cops say, hey, and you're like, what? Bam. And they So it may be that he walked towards them menacingly. It may be that he turned towards them and then they shot.
Oh yeah. All I'm saying is without knowing more details of the case, I think it's on the line, if you will. But at the same time, I don't know. It's fine. These
don't
two don't
fight.
offend me that much. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so speaking of things that are not realistic, this was the weekend of news that isn't news. It's news about people trying to make news that isn't news. And it blows my mind. But I already forgot his name. Senator from Florida, I want to say. Bob Cassidy?
Louisiana Cassidy.
Louisiana, yes. Said Trump might lose the nomination if he runs. And then other places basically picked up on this and said, isn't this interesting? Trump could lose. And they're reporting it as if Trump could lose. And instead of saying, hey.
Like a political theologist came together with a researched work or something.
Listen, we have 12 Nobel laureates on this study. We did the study. We agree. No, this is Bob Cassidy, who has nothing to lose, not running for re-election, really just hates Trump, voted for impeachment, if I remember correctly. He is not the bellwether of the Republican Party. What he's saying is the thing he hopes. He hopes that a moderate will run and that the people will come to their senses and vote for the moderate over Trump, and that will possibly get a Republican elected. Because truthfully, he doesn't think Trump can get elected again. So that's where it comes from. But everyone reporting this just was reporting it as like Trump could lose the election. I'm like, what? Go in. Oh, what you're talking about is an interview where somebody said Trump could lose the election, not that he could actually lose.
I mean, the problem is, here's where Cassidy got it wrong, in my mind. Part of his argument was, depending on what happens with the midterms, could depend on what happens with Trump. If all of a sudden all Republicans everywhere start losing like crazy, and the Democrats gain seats in the House, which they're not supposed to do,
right,
and gain seats in the Senate, which
definitely
would be
not supposed to do.
Well, I mean, they could do it, but it would be less like the House is like off the table. Like, there's no way the Democrats get more seats in the House. So if you are looking at election night in 2022 and you say, "Oh, the Democrats gain seats," then that's bad news for Trump being able to win the Republican nomination. But at the same time,
also, caveat to that is if the Trumpers are running against a moderate and the Trumpers lose and then the moderate wins, that's also bad for Trump in 2024. Like, you backed one of the two Republicans and the guy you didn't back won. So why would we then put our faith in you when you can't get congressman elected? Even though a Republican kept the seat, it was a moderate. It was the Wayne Gilchrist Republican, not the other guy.
Yeah. And I mean, like, the thing is, the thought process from Republicans right now is that Trumpers are 60% of the party. So 100% of the politicians must be Trumpers too.
Right.
Unless you're in a situation like Adam Kinzinger, where you're a Republican, but in a suburban district, like you're more of a country club Republican.
Yeah.
And therefore you can walk away from Trump and seem like a reasonable guy.
Listen, we're scared of black people, but we don't hate them. They just don't want to be in our neighborhood.
There's redlining for a reason. I think that he needs to, if the Trump effort of the Republican Party gets shellacked in the midterms, then Trump will not be as popular come presidential run. The problem is that all the people who enabled him and were acting on his behalf are going to be the people who run as well in the same. So do you have enough, if Trump is running plus Ted Cruz plus Marco Rubio plus Josh fucking what's his face from Iowa.
I'm trying to remember his last name, but Josh, funky looking Josh.
Holly. And pick, 5 other people, fucking Greg Abbott or something like that. And DeSantis, like all these Trump-like Republicans, if there's fucking 13 of them, and then there's one Larry Hogan, like, there's a chance that all these Trumpers are kind of like siphoning off votes from one another, leaving the opportunity for a one Hogan type person to be able to move ahead of the rest of them. But at the same time, if Hogan doesn't gain traction, like if he's the one reasonable Republican in the group and he doesn't gain traction, then you're just going to end up with some version of a Trumper at the end of, Josh Hawley, if he beat Trump for the nomination, became the Republican nominee, like he's still going to be a ridiculous clown. Like he's not going to wake up the next day and just be like, we learned the error of our ways. Like he's still going to have to lean into the Trumpiness of it all.
I think one important thing to remember is that I don't think Trump runs a race unless he is very sure he can win it. And if the midterms go bad, that might be the end of him. He might just be like, all right, I'm done with this politics thing. I'm going to take my ball and go home rather than lose to Joe Biden a second time. Like that's where I feel like we are. So
I don't feel that. I feel like he would run that thing until like he just will continue to run and say,
is there a grift? Can he make a buck from the campaign? Then maybe. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, he can make a buck from there. Yeah, that's why he's going to do it.
You're right. No, you're right about that. If he can make it, if it's a grift, he'll stick it out. So,
I mean, he'll be in jail and he'll run. That's I don't foresee any way that we're getting rid of him until he's dead. Like essentially, that's where this shit will end.
Oh, well, there's an idea. Anyway, and speaking of other fake news,
not a suggestion, just
other fake news this week. A Fox newscaster tweeted.
Maria Bartiromo.
Yeah, tweeted a story that Nancy Pelosi was pushing hard for this Build Back Better bill because as soon as it passed, she was going to retire due to unannounced medical problems. And that in of itself, I mean, sure. Okay. But everyone else reported on it as if it was some sort of scoop. Like, oh, Maria's got the scoop. Like, no, she doesn't. She's just making shit up now. And every story I saw wasn't that Nancy Pelosi, something was up and there was a source. It was Maria says this, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And I thought you made a good point about this too. That and wait, maybe I made the good point about it. I can't remember. Nonetheless, just that if I'm Nancy Pelosi, this is exactly what I want to happen. Because a bunch of Trump people all across the country are going to be like, you know what? I'll give him $1 trillion if it means we can get rid of Nancy Pelosi. And then Nancy like passes the bill and she's like, well, guys, I have a big announcement. We have a whole agenda to get through. I'm here for life, baby.
I just like I don't even understand what the logic of having that as a story. Like, if you have a real good source,
yeah,
and you really trust it,
yeah,
like I'm not gonna say you're wrong. Like, you know, like if fucking Chuck Schumer told you that Nancy's gonna step down and she's expressed this to me.
Now I'm listening. Yeah,
that's a source. That's somebody you can kind of trust in this whole thing. But if you get somebody like that, there's no way you don't ask at least one follow-up question, like, you know, like, or try and find somebody else who knows something, like,
or make it a segment on your national show.
Keep investigating it, like,
yeah.
You know, like, but you know, it almost feels like fuck, what was the like the Drudge Report?
Yeah,
would often have these like somebody
rumors.
Told me.
Yeah, so
somebody
rumors.
There's some gossip going on in Washington about how, and it's never like a source. It's not like Colin Powell says, like, it was always just like rumors around the building.
I was taking a shit in the Capitol and I heard a guy on the call in the stall next to me, and what he said.
I heard an unsubstantiated rumor that I would like to make it seem realistic.
Yeah.
So I had my friend read the thing and tell me that it was his understanding. So now I have a source for this story.
And it sounded, because I wrote it, it sounded amazing, and I ran with it. And then another story that sounds like it should be fake, but is not actually fake. Trump is suing the National Archives.
Yeah. So we talked about it last week. The insurrectionists are, the January 6th Commission is trying to get records from a bunch of Trump people and people who were in the orbit of Trump. So far, not going well. Steve Bannon is they're actively investigating whether to hold him in contempt right now. So that could happen soon. And then they made a request for records. Trump said that you can't do that. He's claiming executive privilege. And then Biden reminded him, I'm actually the executive at the moment. So go ahead and release those records. And now Trump is suing the National Archive, who is the holder of the records,
the technical
to keep
keeper.
them from releasing.
Yes.
Yeah, the technical keeper of the records, to keep them from turning them over to the January 6th Commission.
All this says innocent to me, Corey. I don't know why you're suspicious. All of this says nothing happened. There's nothing to know.
Clearly, a guilty man wouldn't sue the National Archive.
Librarians. He's suing librarians to keep them from allowing someone to check out a book. Is there any chance there is not something in there that makes him look guilty as fuck?
I mean, listen, there's a lot of like Trump guiltiness that like is kind of like funny and endearing in a way. Like when fucking Kayleigh McEnany starts going on about how Jen Psaki is violating the Hatch Act. Like, it's funny because she did it constantly. Like it's like it's just like, oh, look at this little, like, that doesn't raise to the level of like the Congress investigating it or anything like that. That's just good, clean fun. I mean, violating the Hatch Act should be a big deal, but
it's not anymore though. So.
We're all sort of looking past it at this point. But Trump suing the National Archive for them to stop releasing the record, like it almost feels like he got into the White House and he's just like, wait a minute, everything I write is being sent down as a record somewhere. Like,
hey, you, what are you doing? Why are you still writing? Are you writing down everything I say? Oh my God, this is gonna be terrible.
Why are you putting that piece of paper that I put big-breasted women on into a folder and putting it into the National Archive?
The problem is, knowing Trump, he had that realization somewhere around December of 2020. He's just like, who are you? I've seen you around a lot.
National Archive people showing up with boxes, just like, oh, we're here for all your stuff.
What now? What's this?
What? What's this?
I got even money on the fact that he had someone redesign Nancy Pelosi's office, and that file is in there. And they're like, Mr. Trump, can you explain why January 5th, you said, excited to get these to an email that had an attachment redesigning Nancy Pelosi's office and making it your West office or your East office. I don't know what you're talking about. That never happened. Sir, the answer to the email is in all caps, and it just says, awesome, great thing. Are you saying that you didn't write that?
First of all, Trump doesn't email. So
oh, that's true. Yes. Oh,
which is hysterical to me. He's terrible, but at the same time, great at Twitter when he was allowed on Twitter, right? Like
that says more about Twitter than it does about Trump, I think.
He did not know how he was doing it, but he did it somehow. Like the id worked on Twitter.
That's because Twitter is just id. It's everyone's id out and about.
You know how to do that, but you don't know how to respond to an email. Like it's hysterical. Anyway.
This is our country, Corey. You are bringing a child into this world. Just so we're clear about that.
Yeah. Well, Rob and I will record a special podcast here shortly, talking about all that will be released when the baby is released. So we'll get to that later.
Is she getting out of prison? What's the? I mean, kind of, I guess, right?
Being released from the womb.
You need to make sure and insist that she never listens to me at all, because I'm going to be like, well, sweetie, that's 395. You got to listen to all 394 before you get to that episode.
We're gonna work on a headphone situation.
It'll
be like taking a baby to a monster truck rally. I'm gonna get those big batted headphones.
Like, wait, okay. Rob is on a 90-day trip to sub-Saharan Africa. Now's the time. There's no chance he can influence this whatsoever. We're going to go sit her down and let her listen to this one show.
Or I just mysteriously all of a sudden, like, all the episodes of the podcast are deleted on YouTube, and it's just like, oh, I don't know what happened. Somebody at YouTube must have made a mistake. I'll call them and give them a piece of my mind.
Which one of us do you think has connections at YouTube to get videos that are deleted brought back? I mean, come on. Come on.
All right. Well, if you want further machinations of a YouTube genius and then Corey, you know where you can go.
Where's that? What's the number again?
595.
So
normally now
that's the wrong one. There we go. We got it. My glasses.
Normally now I would tell you to go to my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com, but it is not currently up at the moment. We are doing a little housekeeping at the CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com headquarters. So
somebody forgot to pay a bill. Did you forget to pay the light bill? And then you got to tell everybody we're going to have a candle at dinner. Is that what's going on?
No. I actually, I paid the bill and then I asked them to refund it because I wasn't able to use the. That's a big thing. It doesn't matter. New website coming up very shortly. And if any of you know a great website building website, then let me know because I'm interested in that kind of information.
If only somebody let us sell ads, then we would have an official, website solution.
Yeah. Facebook.com/Corey Baker Film at Legends V5 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And that is it for now until the website is back up.
All right. And you can find more of me at Robert and Cheek on all your social networks, robertandcheek.com for links to everything I'm working on. Also, the thing that takes up the majority of my time now, I stream on Twitch, Robert and Cheek on twitch.tv, streaming Call of Duty and Splitgate, and season 6 is wrapping up. We're getting excited for the Haunting event. I'm going to be streaming about that. And then, of course, Vanguard on November 5th. So I already pre-ordered Vanguard. We're going to be out day 1. I might take the day off work. I've reached a new low. I might take the day off work to play Call of Duty all day, and I'll stream the entire time. So come find me, twitch.tv/Robert and Cheek. And, of course, if you play, join me. It's Ankou, Ankou, Kerr, Ker, is YS on Activision Call of Duty. Yeah.
Well, I think we've done good here today.
Oh, we've done something. I don't know if it's good. Wow, that's applies to this podcast and something you did like 9 months ago. Anyway, this has been the ODF podcast for the ODF Digital Network. I'm pretty sure I have a broken rib, and I have laughed more in this episode than I have in like the last 5 episodes, and I just get stabbed every single time.
Good.
I deserve it. For Corey, yeah, you know what? That's karma. That's karma coming back and saying, you know what? This is what you deserve. For Corey, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
Be safe, everyone. Please be safe.
I mean, who are you talking to? Who's going to actually do that? Come on.
Well, no, nobody's really listening at this point anyway. It's just my way.
As someone infamously said, Rob, listen, we're all hypocrites. I mean, everybody but you. We're all the rest of us. We're hypocrites. I'm the last good man in America. Think about me, 2024, November. Just saying. Benevolent dictatorship, it is, it's not overblown. Just try it.